At the heart of the rugged Syunik province in southern Armenia lies a contested 43 kilometers of land. This short stretch is now a geopolitically consequential corridor in Eurasia, the Zangezur Corridor, proposed by Azerbaijan following the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War, envisions a multi-modal highway and railway connection between mainland Azerbaijan and its landlocked enclave, the Nakhchivan. But this is more than just an infrastructure project. It is a flashpoint where trade, territorial sovereignty, and regional power dynamics collide. Let's break it down in today's episode of Tech Explained. Although often framed as a logical outcome of the 2020 ceasefire agreement, the Zangezur Corridor was not explicitly mentioned in the trilateral declaration that ended hostilities between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Instead, its Article 9 called for the unblocking of regional trade and communications. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev introduced the Zangezur label months later. This was the pre-Soviet name for Armenia's Syunik region, portraying the corridor as a historic and post-war entitlement. Historically, the corridor has served as a key trade route as well, linking the Lesser Caucasus with Anatolian highlands and the Zagros Mountains. Thus, it played a vital role in regional connectivity and the development of road networks. From Azerbaijan's perspective, though, the corridor is a solution to a decades-old problem, the isolation of Nakhchivan. With Armenia and Turkey having closed their borders in the early 1990s, Nakhchivan lost direct access to both Azerbaijan proper and global markets. The proposed corridor would reverse this isolation, reduce transport time to Turkey by over 250 kilometers and serve as the backbone of an east-west trade route from the Caspian Sea to Europe. Azerbaijani investment has followed suit with over $15 billion allocated between 2020 and 2028 for rebuilding roads, rails and logistics in Karabakh and East Zangezur. Now, the corridor being part of this larger connectivity project. However, Armenia has responded with its own connectivity vision. It's called the Crossroads of Peace, announced in late 2023. Yerevan seeks to revive Soviet-era transport links in a manner that reinforces, not compromise, national sovereignty. Under this plan, all corridors, whether through Armenia to Nakhchivan or from Azerbaijan to Turkey, would operate under Armenian jurisdiction of custom checks and legal oversight. For Armenia, the main issue is not regional connectivity itself, but the fear that giving up control of the corridor could quietly undermine its sovereignty. Now, this is because Syunik is more than just geography. It is strategic depth. The province forms a narrow but a vital land bridge to Iran and serves as a buffer between Armenia's core and the Azerbaijani military presence in Nakhchivan. The 2023 Azerbaijani offense that emptied Nagorno-Karabakh of its Armenian population heightened fears that any concession in Syunik could lead to further territorial losses and more. Armenia firmly opposes Azerbaijan's demand for unfettered access through this proposed corridor, as it may effectively create a foreign-controlled route on its own territory. The proposal also evokes the painful precedent of the Lachin corridor, once under Armenia control but eventually lost, raising fears of further territorial erosion. With Syunik serving as a strategic link to Iran, Yerevan sees any foreign-controlled passage as a direct security threat, amplified by growing pressure from regional powers. Instead, Yerevan has offered standard transit access with customs and security control in line with existing international frameworks. Under its own model, Armenia could also reap substantial benefits. Reopening links with Iran and Russia via the Nakhchivan could reintegrate into major Eurasian corridors. Moreover, participation in regional transport could shift Armenia from an isolated actor into a critical connector between Asia, Middle East and Europe. Turkey views the Zanzibar project as the missing link in its Middle Corridor strategy, an ambitious plan to connect Turkey with Central Asia and China via the South Caucasus. A direct land connection to Azerbaijan would bypass Iran and strengthen Ankara's geopolitical leverage over Turkic-speaking Central Asian republics. Now let's not forget, for Turkey and Azerbaijan, the corridor is also cultural. It is seen as a step toward uniting the Organization of Turkic States, or the OTS. This corridor would allow Turkey to extend its influence across the Caspian and into the heart of Eurasia, an outcome that alarms both Iran and Russia, the two regional powers deeply wary of pan-Turkic ascendancy. Among all external stakeholders, Iran's position is perhaps the most powerful. Tehran has declared any foreign-controlled corridor across Armenia to be, and I quote, a red line. For Iran, the corridor threatens to sever its access to Yerevan, deepen its strategic isolation, and empower a Turkic arc stretching from Istanbul to Central Asia right along its restive northwest frontier. So Iran has now responded with both rhetoric and action, conducting military drills near its northern border and accelerating development of the Aras corridor, a parallel route entirely within the Iranian territory connecting Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan without crossing into Armenia. This alternative reflects Tehran's desire to remain indispensable in regional logistics, even if Zanzibar project advances under international backing. Now coming to Russia's role, it is quite paradoxical. On one hand, it was the original broker of the ceasefire and proposed using its FSB border service to secure the corridor, ensuring continued Russian presence in a region where its influence is under stress due to the Ukraine war. On the other hand, Moscow is keen not to antagonize Iran, a growing strategic partner, or alienate Armenia, as historically its South Caucasus ally. Coming to United States, the US conversely sees the corridor as a strategic opportunity. Washington has supported the idea of a foreign-managed transit model and even proposed a 100-year lease under the US corporate administration. For the US, the corridor offers a chance to counterbalance Russian and Iranian influence, secure commercial returns from infrastructure partnerships, and participate in shaping the Eurasian logistics map, especially as China's Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI, gains ground. Beijing, for its part, quietly supports the corridor as an enhancement of its Middle Corridor route, a BRI alternative that bypasses both Russia and Iran. The corridor's flatter terrain and shorter distance make it an attractive addition to China's supply chain, though Beijing remains cautious of any Iranian resistance. Now, despite the grand visions, several risks remain unresolved. Armenia fears that a sovereign exempt corridor could allow rapid Azerbaijani military mobilization, especially after the 2023 precedent. Iran sees encirclement, while the US and the EU remain wary of any coercive implementation that would destabilize the fragile post-war environment. Several mitigation proposals have emerged. These include joint Armenian-Azerbaijani customs protocols, third-party management by the EU or private firms, and real-time cargo scanning technologies to prevent arms smuggling. But political will remains limited and trust remains deeply frayed. Alternative routes are also under consideration. The Kars-Gyumri-Vanadors Baku line offers a technically shorter but politically more complex option, requiring the Turkish-Armenian normalization. The Aras corridor, on the other hand, in Iran serves as a redundancy plan for Azerbaijan if negotiations with Armenia stall. Meanwhile, states continue to upgrade the existing Baku-Tbilisi-Kars route as a hedge against the deadlock ensuing. Ultimately, though, the Zanzibar corridor will either pave the way for genuine regional cooperation or deepen the very divides it seeks to bridge. That is all from us today. This is Garima and you are watching the Asian Chronicles.